Spooky video games. They get the adrenaline pumping, your palms sweaty, and put you on the edge of your seat as you play through the game. The PlayStation 5 has been out since 2020 and has now developed a very solid horror selection for PS5 games. Today, we are exploring some of the spookiest PS5 horror games. But hey, if this is your first time on my channel, or if you just haven't yet, make sure you hit that sub button to watch plenty of more PS5 content, from my countdowns to my personal showcase of my PlayStation 5 collection. Alright, cover up your eyes and don't look behind you, because we are exploring some of the scariest PS5 horror games. Dead by Daylight. Let's start off this list with one of the most popular online games to scratch that horror itch. Dead by Daylight is a multiplayer 4v1 horror game where one player takes on the role of a savage killer and the other 4 players play as survivors trying to escape the killer and avoid being caught, tortured, and killed. Survivors play in third person and have the advantage of better situational awareness. The killer plays in first person and is more focused on their prey. The survivor's goal in each encounter is to escape the killing ground without getting caught by the killer. Something that sounds easier than it is, especially when the environment changes every time you play. Observer System Redux. Now let's switch it up for some mystery and detective style horror with Observer System Redux. The year is 2084. The future has turned out much darker than anyone could imagine. First, there was the nanophage, a digital plague that killed thousands upon thousands of those who chose to augment their minds and bodies. Then came the war, leaving both the West and the East decimated and shattered. With no one left to seize power, corporations took over and forged their own crooked empires. In all of this mess, you'll play as Daniel, an elite investigator and observer. As an observer, you will hack into the minds of suspects to extract clues and evidence. Anything that they felt, thought, or remembered can and will be used to solve your case. You'll creep into the darkest corners of your suspects' minds.
Help me, you need to.
The Outbreak series. Explore a nightmarish environment, scrounge for supplies, and battle the undead in Outbreak. It's an online and offline co-op survival horror game. The clock never stops as you attempt to manage an extremely limited inventory with a murderous horde on the hunt. Choose between acquiring additional weapons, healing items, or necessary tools for progression. You only have one life, so you better make it count. Outbreak has received tons of updates over the years, and you'll still have plenty of fun with friends. This is another great horror game to experience in co-op, and you can do it online or on the couch with a friend. Infliction. Infliction is an interactive nightmare, a horrific exploration of the darkness that can lurk within the most normal-looking suburban home. Wander through the remnants of a once happy family, reading letters and journals, listening to voicemails, and piecing together the clues to understand the terrible events that have led you here. But be warned, you are not alone. Something else has remained in this house, a being of infinite grief and rage. While you hunt for clues, it hunts you, waiting for its chance to unleash its anger on you. Can you survive long enough to find atonement? This is very much a cat and mouse-like game, as you will be stalked constantly. You can hide, or you can try and defend yourself by fighting back. Mundon. Looking for a unique art style horror game? Well, I got you covered. After learning of his grandfather's mysterious death in a fire, the protagonist travels to Mundon for the first time since childhood. He will soon discover that something old and diabolical is haunting the remaining inhabitants. The quest to find out the meaning behind these sinister events takes the player on an odyssey up the Mundon mountain. From steep meadows across stony fields and to the snow-covered peak, you'll be exploring and surviving. Mundon is a hand-penciled horror tale set in a dark, secluded valley of the Alps. Explore various areas full of secrets to discover, survive hostile encounters, drive vehicles, fill up your inventory, and solve a variety of handcrafted puzzles. Dark. How about a horror game that acts as a puzzler? Dark tells the story of Lloyd, a boy who becomes aware of the fact that he is dreaming. To Lloyd's misfortune, the dream quickly turns into a nightmare and all attempts to wake up end in failure. While exploring the darkest corners of his subconsciousness, Lloyd learns how to survive the nightmare by bending the laws of physics and manipulating the fluid fabric of the dream world. Apart from gravity-defying puzzles, Lloyd will have to use stealth when enemies are nearby. He has no chance of winning in an open confrontation, since the creatures he will encounter are much more powerful and faster than him. So instead, he has to rely on careful planning to avoid being detected. The game is heavy on psychological horror and relies on building a slow and creepy atmosphere rather than using gore and violence. This may not be a core horror title, but it's unique and deserves some attention for the clever combination of puzzle and horror. Resident Evil Village. Like I could make a horror list and not include a Resident Evil game. Experience the survival horror like never before in the 8th major installment of the Resident Evil franchise with Resident Evil Village. Set a few years after the horrifying events of Resident Evil 7, the story begins with Ethan Winters and his wife Mia living peacefully in a new location, free from their past nightmares. Just as they are building their new life together, tragedy befalls them once again. Players will assume the role of Ethan Winters and experience every close-up battle and terrifying pursuit through a first-person perspective. Resident Evil is one of the best horror franchises in all of video games, so you can expect a terrific but scary experience. Made of Scur. You better hold your breath for this one. Made of Scur is a first-person survival horror game set in a remote hotel with a gory and storied history from British folklore. Discover multiple story endings through exploration, a sound-based AI system, and no-weapon survival tactics. Set in 1898 and inspired by the haunting Welsh tale of Elizabeth Williams, this is a story of a family empire driven by torture, slavery, piracy, and supernatural mysteries that suffocate the grounds of the hotel. Now, as I mentioned, you better hold your breath because, as stated, this is a sound-based horror game. So the more sound that you make, the more unwanted attention will be upon you. DOI Literature Club. This next one is personally one of my favorite horror experiences from the last 5 years. I played this when it was still very underground as a PC title, but it has since come to the PS5. DOI Literature Club is a visual novel with elements of a dating sim, but underneath it all is a psychological horror game. The player is invited to become a member of the school's literature club, which consists of 4 girls. The cheerful and energetic Sayori, the shy and reclusive Yuri, the boastful and testy Natsuki, and of course, Monika, the level-headed president of the club. The player is invited to write poems to present to the other members. After every in-game day, a mini-game takes place where the player chooses words to include in his poem. Different words will appeal to different girls in the club, and by choosing them carefully, the player can deepen their relationship with one of the girls. The game initially appears as a typical dating sim with cute, upbeat aesthetics. However, the mood of this game becomes significantly darker and disturbing over time. Now, I won't spoil anything, but some of the twists and horror elements are done very, very well. A Plague Tale: Innocence. Let's wrap this up with another horror game set in Europe from long ago. A Plague Tale will have you following the grim tale of young Amicia and her brother Hugo in a heart-pounding journey through the darkest hours of history. Hunted by the Inquisition soldiers and surrounded by unstoppable swarms of rats, Amicia and Hugo will come to know and trust each other. As they struggle to survive against overwhelming odds, they will fight to find purpose in this brutal and unforgiving world. During all of this, the plague ravages the kingdom of France. Amicia and her brother Hugo are pursued by the Inquisition through villages devastated by disease. On their way, they will have to join forces with other children and evade swarms of rats using fire and light. Aided only by the links that bind their fates together, they will face untold horrors in their struggle to survive. As their adventure begins, the time of innocence ends.
Not here!
And you, stay here.
Come on.
It's very clear. Tell me, where is Hugo de Rune?
So those were 10 PS5 horror games. Which of them have you played? Which of them do you want to play now? Let me know below in the comments, and while you're typing away, give me a couple other horror games that I should experience on the PS5. And of course, like this video and subscribe to my channel to watch plenty of more PS5 content. Thanks for watching.